The restaurant was the kind of place where even the silence felt expensive. Crystal chandeliers hung above marble floors. Soft piano music drifting through the air as waiters moved carefully between tables. The city's wealthiest families came here for quiet deals, elegant dinners, and the kind of privacy money could buy. At a corner table near the window sat a group of well-dressed people celebrating an engagement. At the center of that table was Isabella Laurent, 28 years old, the only daughter of Victor Laurent, the billionaire founder of Laurent International, beautiful, poised, and raised in a world where every decision seemed carefully planned. Even tonight, her mother smiled proudly as guests admired the diamond ring on Isabella's finger. Adrienne chose it personally in Paris. Her mother said, 3 carats. Adrian, the man sitting beside Isabella, nodded politely. He was a venture capitalist with perfect hair, a perfect suit, and a perfect reputation. The perfect match, at least according to everyone else. Isabella forced a polite smile, but her eyes kept drifting toward the restaurant entrance. She had sent a message 30 minutes ago, a message she never thought she'd actually send. If you come, just say the words. Her father noticed her distraction. Isabella, Victor Laurent said firmly, our guests are speaking to you. She snapped back to the table. Yes, of course. But her heart was racing, because tonight wasn't just an engagement dinner. Tonight was a decision. 2 years earlier, Isabella had met someone completely outside her world, Daniel Carter, a quiet man with tired eyes and a gentle voice who worked as a school counselor in a modest neighborhood across the city. They met on accident when Isabella volunteered at a community literacy program, something her company sponsored for publicity. Daniel didn't know who she was. To him, she was just Isabella, the woman who stayed late helping children read, the woman who laughed when coffee spilled across lesson plans, the woman who slowly became someone he couldn't stop thinking about. But their worlds were different, very different. Daniel was a single father raising a 6-year-old daughter after losing his wife years earlier. He drove an old car, lived in a small apartment, and carried responsibilities that left little room for billion-dollar lifestyles. When he finally learned who Isabella really was, he stepped away quietly. You deserve someone who belongs in your world, he told her. But Isabella had never stopped thinking about him. Back at the restaurant, glasses clinked as someone stood to give a toast. To Isabella and Adrian, a future built on success and partnership. Everyone applauded, except Isabella. Her phone vibrated in her purse. One message, I'm here. Her heart nearly stopped. Before she could react, the restaurant doors opened. People glanced up casually, and then they saw him. Daniel stepped inside wearing a simple jacket, holding the hand of a small girl in a pink sweater. The contrast between him and the room was obvious. Conversation slowed. The hostess approached him cautiously. Sir, do you have a reservation? Daniel looked across the restaurant. His eyes found Isabella immediately. Yes, he said quietly. With her. The hostess followed his gaze. The table fell silent. Adrian frowned. Do you know him? He asked Isabella. Her mother looked confused. Victor Laurent's expression darkened. Daniel walked slowly toward the table, his daughter's small hand still in his. Every step echoed through quiet room. When he reached the table, Isabella stood up without thinking. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Adrian leaned back in his chair. Is there a problem? He asked sharply. Daniel didn't look at him. He simply looked at Isabella. You asked me to come, he said gently. Her father stood now. Who are you? Daniel finally turned. My name is Daniel Carter. Victor Laurent's voice was cold. And why exactly are you interrupting my daughter's engagement dinner? The entire restaurant watched. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. Instead, he reached down and picked up his daughter so she could see over the table. Then he said something that froze the room. She's with me? 3 simple words. But they hit like thunder. Isabella stood completely still. Adrian laughed in disbelief. Excuse me? Daniel remained calm. She asked me to come, he repeated. Victor Laurent's face turned red. My daughter's engaged. Daniel nodded slowly. I know. Then you should leave. Silence spread across the table. Everyone waited. Isabella's mother whispered urgently, Say something. Adrian looked irritated. This is ridiculous. But Isabella still hadn't spoken. Daniel's daughter looked around nervously. Daddy, are we in trouble? He shook his head softly. No, sweetheart. He looked back at Isabella. I'm not here to make a scene, he said quietly. You asked me to come if you needed me. The restaurant felt like it stopped breathing. Finally, Isabella moved. She reached up slowly and removed the engagement ring from her finger. Gasps spread across the table. Adrian shot to his feet. Isabella, what are you doing? Her father's voice thundered. Isabella Laurent. But she wasn't looking at them. She was looking at Daniel. You came, she whispered. You asked, he replied. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought you wouldn't. Daniel gave a small smile. I almost didn't. The silence was unbearable now. Then Isabella placed the ring gently on the table. I'm sorry, she said to Adrian, but I can't build a life that doesn't feel real. Her mother looked horrified. Think about what you're doing. I have, Isabella said softly. Victor Lawrence's voice shook with anger. You would throw away everything for this man? Daniel stepped forward slightly. You don't have to do this, he said to her quietly. Your family is right about one thing. Our lives are different. Isabella looked down at the little girl in his arms. What's your name? She asked. Sophie, the girl said shyly. Isabella smiled through her tears. Hi, Sophie. Then she looked back at Daniel. I'm not choosing a life, she said. I'm choosing love. The room erupted with whispers. Victor Laurent shook his head in disbelief. You are making a mistake. Isabella walked around the table. When she reached Daniel, she gently touched Sophie's hand. Is it okay if I walk with you? She asked the little girl. Sophie looked up at her dad. Daniel hesitated, then nodded. Sophie smiled. Okay. Isabella took her hand. Then she looked once more at the table filled with wealth, expectations, and carefully planned futures. I'm done pretending, she said quietly. And together, the three of them walked toward the restaurant exit. Behind them, the billionaire family sat frozen at the table. But outside, under the city lights, a single dad, a little girl, and a woman who had just walked away from billions stepped into a life that finally felt like it belonged to them.